impact on fetal development, maternal health, your ability to breastfeed, your ability to carry a pregnancy to term. Interestingly enough, in Finland, the number one thing they will test couples for, men and women, if they are unable to get pregnant or conceive, is celiac disease. How about here? Do we do that here? No, because it's a multi-bazillion dollar business, IVF, right? But the problem is, or the danger is, even if they do get a woman pregnant that is celiac, she's going to have a hard time maintaining that pregnancy. Either miscarriage, stillbirth, low birth weight pregnancy, and then neural defects, things like spina bifida. And also, we know that people with Down syndrome, Williams syndrome, and Turner syndrome are at increased risk for celiac disease. So then we have to go back genetically, right, and say, are the mom or the dad or both gene carriers for the DQ2 or DQ8 gene? So growth and development, we just did a nice research study. There's certain countries that have already done this study, but they found that 65 to 90% of the population that is short is celiac, malnutrition, failure to thrive, stunted growth. So you can look those studies up. They're all on the web. Everybody has access to this information. Delayed puberty, addictions. Anybody suffer from food addictions ever in your life? Yeah. People will tell me all the time they're carboholics, or they will never give up their pizza and their beer because they're addicted to them. Yes, they are. And I will tell you that food is the gateway drug. It's not pot. It's food. And this particular protein, the gluten protein, will bind with the opioid receptors in your brain, much like a narcotic. So when people say they have brain fog or they're fatigued or they're tired all the time, think about that. You're taking essentially some variation of a narcotic every day. Lower quality of life, prison and jail, and I don't kid about this. I really want that population to be tested because I suspect that our prisons are full of people with celiac disease because of the gut-brain connection and because it inflames the brain and it makes people angry and irritable and cranky and who knows what else, rage. Those people come into my office all the time, and sometimes if we can prevent bad things from happening, I really think we should do that. And of course, death. We know that people that are undiagnosed celiac die at a higher rate and much younger than whatever the normal population is. So I really do think it would behoove us as a population, as a country, to find people with celiac disease like they do in Italy or Norway or Canada. They actively test people for celiac. And in 2004, the NIH said that they were going to do a mass screening for celiac. Did anybody get mass screened in 2004? How about 2010? How about last year? It's not happened. And they also said they were going to do a healthcare education program. They didn't do that either. I just developed one, and it's now available for up to 16 continuing education program or contact hours for nurses and doctors, OTs, PTs. But honestly, the government should be doing that. They should be educating healthcare providers. Your intestines are sometimes considered to be the second brain. I'm starting to consider them to be the first brain. Anybody else think they might be that this is it? Yeah. Because your brain does not necessarily talk to your intestines, does it? Your intestines, everything goes on here, goes up to your brain via the vagus nerve. So all of your neurotransmitters, the food you eat, the alcohol you consume, where does it impact? Your brain. So interestingly enough, also, people that are put on SSRI medications or selective serotonin reuptake medications and they are told they fail them, like it's your fault, you failed the medications, If you don't have enough serotonin and dopamine in your intestines, and 95% of those neurotransmitters are in your intestines, there is no hope that they're going to work. Okay? So your intestines really are command central. Brain number one. It's really important that your intestines are healthy, and there's only certain ways that you can see your intestines or correlate the health of your intestines with the rest of your body. Celiac disease, your intestines, everything impact your medical health, your mental health, your relationships, your ability to be employed, and to be a productive member of society. It impacts how well you age, cooking, eating, your entire life. So I figured I'd talk a little bit about all of these aspects. The medical and health part of your intestines, like I said, your intestines will grow back in the absence of gluten, 100% gluten-free, if not paleo. So if you're talking to a medical professional or you're reading a report, you would see things like villus atrophy, increased IELs, increased epithelial leukocytes. And you know what? I've been working with a woman for probably about 10 years. She doesn't have any symptoms, so I consider her to be at a disadvantage if she gets gluten. She just had another endoscopy, and the report actually showed that she, despite being gluten-free, she still has increased epithelial leukocytosis. And I said, oh, you still have gut damage. Where are you still getting gluten? She's like, swore up and down that she's not getting gluten. So I went to her house, because, I have to go find now where she's getting gluten. So I go to her house. She still has snacks for her grandkids in her pantry. The snacks for the cats, which contain wheat, are on her cupboard. And then she still makes sandwiches for her husband. Toaster is on the counter. Right down here is the silverware drawer. We're going to get her intestines healed, but she's since cleaned all that wheat out of her house. This is why it's important, because people will think they're gluten-free, but they're not. It's kind of a little hard, but it's not really hard. Your house should be 100% gluten-free, because we want to prevent all of this damage or heal it as quickly as possible. Depression, anxiety, mental health disorders. Did you know that there's a great study from 1966 directly linking gluten consumption, or cereal consumption as they called it, with schizophrenia? If they take the cereals out of schizophrenics' diets, they get better and they didn't come back into the psych unit. If they went back to eating gluten or the cereal grains, then they did have a recurrence of schizophrenia. You can look that study up too. Learning disabilities, other addictions, because once you're addicted to something, there's a good chance you're going to be addicted to many other things. Brain fog, rage, and relationships. So there's a lot to say about relationships. I will tell you that this is my daughter. She's 24 now, and this is her friend. I just went to Carly's gluten-free, dairy-free halal wedding last weekend, and she is gene negative, but so we would consider her non-celiac gluten sensitive. But I had a conversation with her mom when she was about this age, because I was afraid that she was going to die. Now, I'm a nurse, her mom's a nurse, and I was like, this is a really hard conversation to have with you, but her eyes she had the dark circles in her eyes, she wasn't growing, she was miserable, she didn't have a lot of energy. So her mom got her tested, gene negative, the whole family went gluten-free, and Carly started to grow. She's taller than I am now. She's an entirely different person, and she's got a spark in her step. Here in this picture, she was on an individual education plan, IEP, and now she's doing advanced placement math and science. How cool is that? She got her brain back. So I'm highly recommending people get their brain back. So we had them gene tested at the same time. That's my daughter on that side. This is Carly. My daughter is gene positive. I was not expecting that because, only white people can have celiac disease, right? So then I did a lot more research. But my daughter went gluten-free when she was 10 with me. She's like, Mommy, I don't have belly pain anymore within 24 hours. I'm like, how could I not have known this? It's valuable information. So social situations, we're coming up to the holiday time. I will host Thanksgiving at my house. The entire thing will be paleo, the entire meal. If you want to come to my house for Thanksgiving, you're more than welcome to. But it can be difficult to navigate all of this. People get angry if you're threatening their food, which I don't quite understand. You're on a gluten-free diet, I'm on a gluten-free diet. Why exactly would that threaten you in any way? Unless, you probably should get tested for celiac disease if that's the control it has over your brain. So social situations are navigable. But sometimes, honestly, I have to say, what, thanks for the invite, but I'm not coming. It's just not worth it. Or I know that you're coming. Okay, you have to come to Oregon. So these things are navigable. You can figure it out, or you can invite everybody to your house. No one is allowed to bring gluten into my house. Okay, I have rules. I did get a divorce. I live with a wonderful man who's also paleo. Our entire house is gluten-free. He's paleo. It makes it easier. If people love you, they're going to do what it takes to be with you. It doesn't have to be hard, right? Ooh. Traveling, a lot of people say, well, I can't eat outside my house. I travel all over the world. I take gluten-free groups on river cruises in Europe. We just got back from the Rhine, and I went to Paris. There's a great app called Dedicated Gluten Free, and it's amazing. So if you put it on your phone, you'll find all the local restaurants. So here you'll find Zest and Asian Box and Pika Pika, which is one of my favorite restaurants down here. But traveling does not have to be hard. I will say I went to Asia, and because most of the restaurants will try to have, I went to Thailand and India, most of them cater to people that eat a Western diet, so they have pizza, spaghetti, hamburgers, which then contaminates their entire kitchen and makes it very difficult to eat. So I did some intermittent fasting in Thailand, but I did find places that were really good and strictly gluten-free. These are pictures I took when I'm traveling, so I love taking just pictures to show, mango sticky rice. I could live on that, and I did actually for like a week. This is a Who Kitchen in New York City. If you're ever yeah, I see some nods. Go to Who Kitchen. It's paleo. So it's amazing. It's super huge, and there's nothing that is going to contaminate me. So when I'm in New York City, I go to Who Kitchen to eat. But you have to beware. So I go to the store, and I'm like everybody else, I'm busy. I don't look at all the labels, but I expect my olive oil to be gluten-free. This particular olive oil was not gluten-free. It was manufactured in a facility that also manufactures wheat. So I took it back, got my money back, and got a good olive oil. And we don't use the word cross-contamination anymore. It's just contaminated. It's contaminated with wheat, barley, or rye. And why would somebody put barley in my good pesto? I make my own pesto, but why would you put barley in pesto? I don't know. So you have to be pretty, just be aware. And of course, Cheerios are not gluten-free. Please don't think that they are. Where else is gluten? Well, anything that's compostable right now, they don't declare where it's made from or how it's made. So please be aware that a lot of it is made with wheat straw or wheat. It'll actually say gluten-free. I'm like, I'm not going to eat the plate, but nor am I going to put my food on a wheat-containing plate. They also make wheat-containing toilet paper now. So if you think that's a good idea, it's probably not. So just be aware that the wheat industry is a little bit remiss that 30% of Americans and Canadians are on some variation of a gluten-free diet. And so the wheat industry is not actually doing as good as they thought. There's a lot of surplus wheat, and they're losing money. So they're looking for other ways to use it. So we have to be a little bit more savvy and pay attention. Work can be tricky. This is my office, by the way. That's not me, that's Paige. But this is a gluten-free restaurant in Philomath, Oregon. If you ever come up to Oregon, please go to Eats and Treats. So their employees are all educated. As soon as they're hired, I come in, I do a class on what gluten-free is. Obviously, contamination is not an issue in the restaurant because everything is 100% gluten-free. But it's important that everyone is educated. And celiac disease does impact your workplace. You cannot work in a pizzeria if you have celiac, right? So you have to make decisions, life decisions about where you're going to work, what you're going to do. You can't work in a place where they're making flour or grinding flour, or even live in a place where there's wheat fields nearby where they're going to harvest it. That's environmental exposure. Learning in school can be tricky also. Cross-contamination or contamination from other kids. Just touching it, I know it sounds crazy, but sharing computers and things like that is a contamination risk. Support groups are great. If you don't belong to one, find one. I know there's a couple representatives here from the support groups locally. Join one, find friends. Trust me, you are not the only one. Your child is not the only one with celiac disease. And if they want to start their own group, there'll be plenty of people to join. Remember, this is the largest market in the world. We are out there. We just have to connect with each other at this point. Don't be afraid. It's all navigable. You just have to know that you have support. There are people that know what they're talking about. I know some people are in abusive relationships, or they have relatives that are abusive and not very nice. But we have to be self-protective on every level. Know where your food comes from. I like the local companies that are small that I can go talk to them. Over here, they make their own stuff. The Cracker Company over here, there's a couple of really nice ones. But as soon as those nice little businesses get bought by one of these corporations, I stop buying them, because I cannot call up a corporation and say, hey, what are your standards of practice? Where did you source your ingredients from? Are they truly gluten-free? And they do not have to change their label on their products for 6 months after they change an ingredient. So I can't even really rely on the label on a product. I know, isn't that interesting? It's true. So that's why one of the reasons I moved to more of a paleo whole food diet. Meats, fish, eggs, nuts and seeds, fruits and veggies, and a lot of them. Because I just trust a lot of the corporations, I don't know, to provide safe food for me. And wheat is everywhere. I live in Oregon. It's literally everywhere. I can drive down the road. I took these pictures. It's really pretty. But as soon as they're harvesting the wheat, they spray it with glyphosate first. It's a desiccant, yes, they do. And then they harvest it, and that wheat is in the air. And I can tell you the incidences of people that go to the emergency department for asthma or any breathing difficulty increase when they're harvesting wheat. It's environmental exposure. Holidays, weddings, and parties can be very easy. I always eat beforehand, for the most part, unless I'm going to Carly's wedding, which is gluten-free, dairy-free, and halal. But for the most part, I eat beforehand, take my own food, whatever it takes to be able to go and enjoy, because I don't want to be socially isolated. And I encourage everyone not to be socially isolated. Kids are important, and I really do try to find kids. By the way, that's me and my son. He's 31 now. We kind of look alike. But I had celiac, I did have celiac disease when I was a child. I probably had celiac disease in utero, but of course nobody knew that. But I try to find kids or women before they get pregnant, because again, this has a huge impact on fetal development and maternal health. And if we can prevent the damage that happens in utero, which by the way, I'll show you Brayley's sign. If this 5th digit is not as long or longer than this, your 4th digit, it's 85% predictive that you are a gene carrier for celiac disease. It's fetal development. Yeah, so you see that 5th digit? So if that 5th digit is not as long, almost as long as that 4th digit, it's called Brayley sign, Dr. Brayley. So that's fetal development right there. Okay? Isn't that interesting? It means that you're potentially a gene carrier for celiac disease. And it's fetal development. The same thing with the dental enamel defects. That damage happens in utero. Do you see why it's so important to find people sooner than later? Because what happens is Phyllis, lovely, and Nancy was a banana baby. She was diagnosed in 1947 with celiac disease, way back when. And then a doctor nicely told her that she didn't have celiac disease anymore and she didn't have to be on a gluten-free diet, because she didn't have any villus atrophy and her antibody test was negative because she was on a gluten-free diet. Was that a good idea? No, she didn't know any better at the time, so she went back to eating gluten. She's like, well, I was a baby when this happened, so was that good? No. She developed Parkinson's, so a neurologic hit. And so it's really hard to undo the neurologic damage that happens. And please keep in mind that celiac disease, while the damage starts in your intestine, celiac disease is primarily neurologic. You have an entire nervous system right here. It's called the enteric nervous system. Of course, the peripheral, the central. But this enteric nervous system. So constipation is a neurological disorder. Constipation is a paralysis of your intestines. Okay, it's not a lack of fiber and water. So it's important that we know these things so that we can age well. Because I want to age well, right? Anybody else want to age well? Everybody? Okay. Yes. And this is my friend Sammy, and he knows that no one has ever died from a gluten deficiency. Good one. He wears this shirt all the time. I love him. This is one of my other friends that got diagnosed over the age of 60. This is Ray. And, sometimes people have damage done and we can't fix it, but I always try to fix as many things as possible with a gluten-free paleo diet and then lifestyle. There's a couple things that we tweak and fix. I want everybody to have the opportunity to get better. So blood pressure medications go away, cholesterol medications go away, a lot of the medications go away because people get better. Immunosuppressants go away. They're one of my least favorite medications for people on Crohn's disease or anything. If we can fix the Crohn's disease, you don't need those medications that further do other things and are potentially cancer causing. Okay? So we want to keep people healthy. Keep it simple. None of this food is difficult. It's all simple. So when people say, well, going gluten-free is really hard, I'm like, no, it's not. Can you use a knife? Can you cut up some veggies, grill them, saute them, use bacon fat? Whose grandmother had coffee cans full of lard? And oh yeah, guess what I got? I have a can of, it's not a can, it's a really nice pottery bowl of lard or bacon fat. And I use it for all of my cooking because I tell everybody that needs to be on a gluten-free or paleo type diet, super good high-fat diet is going to heal your intestines and your nervous system. Brain. It's a big globule of fat with neurons running through it. What are Parkinson's, MS, ALS? It's a demyelination of your nervous system. What is myelin? Fat. So you need those building blocks to recover, heal your nervous system and the rest of your body. My staples, and this is my little cooking hint, I make amazing food. At some point we're probably going to do a cookbook, I don't know. It sounds a little bit outside my realm, but people come to my house and they're like, oh my God, this is like the best food ever. Organic pumpkin, it's a puree. It's made in Corvallis, Oregon at Stallbush Farms. I use it as a thickener for my gravy. So for turkey gravy, I put it in my stews in my Instant Pot or my crock pot. It's amazing. Nutrient dense, full of beta carotene, which converts to vitamin A. A lot of other good nutrients in organic pumpkin. And this is 100% coconut milk that I use also as a thickener, coconut curry, yum, lamb, all kinds of things. And this is local olive oil. And I do emphasize local food, organic as much as possible, and fresh as much as possible. None of this stuff has to be hard. And I went down to the University of San Diego not that long ago, and I went to the American Gut Project because I love talking about the microbiome, and they study that there. And so I said, okay, you have been studying this for a long time. What is the number one thing that is really good for your microbiome, your intestinal microbiome? And they said, you know what? It's eating a variety of vegetables and fruit. The more variety you have, the better your microbiome is going to be, the more diverse. So there you go. That's a good hint for today. So eat your colors, eat all the good food, eat together. This is Chef Abby, and she does pop-up dinners. She's amazing. I don't know if she still does it, but this is one where she teaches you how to cook, and then you get to eat a really fabulous gluten-free dinner. Again, we have an amazing farmers market. We have farmers that have entire gluten-free farms, which means that they feed their chickens or kitchen scraps and bugs, and they're free range and everything. There's no grains on this farm at all. So it's Midway Farms. Good food, gluten-free. Just focus on good food. It doesn't have to be hard. If it is hard, you're doing it wrong. Okay? We just need to focus on real food as much as possible. I did just recently travel to Paris, and they did have a gluten-free Italian restaurant that was super duper good, and it happened to be pretty much at the base of the Eiffel Tower, so I had to go to the Eiffel Tower every day. That was pretty cool. So don't be afraid to travel. Use the apps, talk to people, connect with people before you go anywhere, because you never know. These are my people at Eats and Treats, but the Queen showed up, so you never know who you're. Grass-fed, no antibiotics, no hormone for the meat. Extremely important, because we know that. Does anybody ever travel up and down I-5 and you go past that nastiness that is? Okay, it's not a ranch. I don't know what that is, but that's not a ranch. So these are my local farmers, and it's 100% grass-fed. They're not finished with grain or anything else. There's no antibiotics, no hormones ever in my meat, because I don't need or want those antibiotics in my food. Because what is that going to do? It's going to destroy my microbiome. And in the United States, 80% of the antibiotics that are used on farm animals. No. So just be aware. There's lots